What if the dream was nothing but a well-curated illusion? A life so polished it glistened, until one crack shattered the glass. What if the dream life was nothing but a mask? Lena had everything. An adoring tech tycoon husband, a breathtaking San Francisco high-rise, and a baby on the way. But late-night whispers and the scent of unfamiliar cologne began unraveling her perfect world. She couldn't ignore it anymore. She told her husband she was going to visit her sister for the weekend. Instead, she doubled back, each footstep toward their front door, the drumbeat of dread. She expected deception. She wasn't ready to find her husband in bed with another woman, their bed. This wasn't just a broken marriage. It was betrayal. It was vengeance. It was the unraveling of a woman who had been pushed to her edge. The skyline of San Francisco sparkled beneath their 52nd floor penthouse, stretching like a sea of fireflies. From up here, Lena Monroe could see the entire city, a kingdom she thought she shared with her husband, Carter. Their home, an architectural marvel of glass, stone, and sleek design, had been spotlighted in lifestyle magazines. Their life? A carousel of elite galas, exclusive exhibitions, and weekend yacht escapes that drew envy from every corner of their social circle. Carter Monroe, 36, was a self-made mogul in the renewable energy sector. His firm, Monroe Innovations, was both praised and feared in business circles. Lena, once a museum consultant with a deep love for modern sculpture, had fallen into his orbit 6 years ago. He was magnetic, he was driven, and he had seemed completely devoted, or so she had believed. Now, 7 months pregnant, Lena felt more like a fragile artifact under glass than the queen of this modern empire. The doubts had crept in slowly. A midnight strategy meeting that dragged until dawn. A scent, sharp and floral, nothing like her usual soft vanilla, lingering on his coat. The way he turned his phone screen just out of her view. It all whispered of secrets. Just business, love, he'd murmur, brushing her hair back with the same ease that used to comfort her. All this stress will be worth it when we're watching sunsets in Bora Bora next month. But the lies kept stacking. And so did the space between them. He was there in body, but his spirit had drifted somewhere far beyond reach. Their home, once filled with music and laughter, now pulsed with silence, punctuated only by the low drone of the air conditioning and the far-off whine of the city below. The moment of no return arrived on a Tuesday night. Carter had called, claiming he was trapped in a marathon video call with investors from Singapore. Meanwhile, Lena, craving a very specific brand of pickles she couldn't locate in their immaculate kitchen, decided to take a walk to a gourmet market a few blocks away. The evening was crisp and clear, the kind that made the city feel alive in a way Lena had missed. The fresh air offered a sliver of peace in a life that had lately felt suffocating. On her way back, she turned onto a quieter, tree-lined street in Pacific Heights, a neighborhood they rarely visited. That's when she saw him. Carter, standing outside an intimate, upscale wine bar named Bar Meridian, not with Singaporean investors, with a woman. She was stunning, tall, elegant, her jet-black hair cascading over a fitted crimson dress. She laughed, her hand brushing Carter's arm with a familiarity that hit Lena like a punch to the chest. She froze, her grocery bag suddenly unbearable in her grasp. It wasn't just the touch, it was Carter's face, soft, open, captivated. It was a look she hadn't seen directed at her in months. Lena ducked into a recessed doorway, her breath catching in her throat. Her pulse roared in her ears. She watched, heart pounding, as Carter leaned in and kissed the woman. It was slow, intimate. The kind of kiss that carried history. The ground beneath her felt unsteady. The man she had trusted, the father of her unborn child, was living a lie. Tears blurred her vision. She turned and walked, stumbled, back the way she came. The pickles were long forgotten. The lights of the city no longer sparkled. They pierced. Every street lamp seemed to spotlight her humiliation. Back in their sterile, polished penthouse, she moved like a ghost. She unpacked the groceries with shaking hands. Her eyes caught on the sonogram taped to the fridge, a fuzzy black-and-white glimpse of the child growing inside her. A fresh wave of nausea hit, one that had nothing to do with pregnancy. She knew she couldn't confront him, not yet. He would lie. Twist her words, make her feel unstable, irrational, just hormonal. Carter was a master manipulator. That's how he'd built Monroe Innovations, by reading people, disarming them, outmaneuvering truth with charm. No, she needed proof. Irrefutable, undeniable proof. That night, as she lay alone in their cavernous king-size bed, a plan took root. Bold, risky, like something from a thriller. But then again, her life had become a script she never agreed to star in. It was time to take control of the next scene. By morning, Lena was no longer the woman she had been the night before. The pain hadn't vanished, it lingered, raw and hollow in her chest. But now, it was layered beneath something colder: resolve. As Carter entered the kitchen the next morning, Lena greeted him with a calm smile, perfected over years of playing the loyal wife. "Morning, babe," he said, pressing a kiss to her cheek. She caught it again. That perfume. Sweet and sharp. Not hers. "Sleep well?" he asked casually. "Like a baby," she replied smoothly, voice even. "Actually, I was thinking, I haven't seen my sister in a while. I might drive up to Mendocino for the weekend. A little ocean air might do me and the baby some good." Carter's eyes brightened, a flicker of something she now recognized all too well. Relief. "That sounds great, Lena. You definitely deserve a break." "Think I'll take the Defender. It's more comfortable," she added, pouring herself a glass of orange juice to hide the slight tremor in her hands. "I'll probably leave Friday after my prenatal yoga class and be back Sunday evening." "Perfect," he said, too quickly. "I've got back-to-back Zooms all weekend. I'd be lousy company anyway." His reaction felt like a slap, quick, painless for him, but bruising in its implication. No hesitation, no follow-up questions, just relief. It was the final puzzle piece sliding into place. Not only was he hiding something, he was confident she wouldn't catch him. That confidence would be his undoing. His eagerness, the complete lack of hesitation, confirmed everything. He wasn't just cheating, he was making plans. And she had just offered him the perfect window. The following days were a masterclass in misdirection. Lena packed a weekend bag, stuffing it with prenatal books her sister had sent, neatly folded maternity sweaters, and her favorite lavender-scented lotion. She called her sister on speakerphone, talking loudly enough for Carter to overhear about her plans. She even booked a non-refundable facial at a wellness retreat and forwarded the confirmation to her email, just in case he checked. Every breadcrumb she left was deliberate. Her only ally in the scheme was Aaron, her best friend since college, a sharp-tongued criminal defense attorney who had always distrusted Carter. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" Aaron asked during a whispered call. "Because this could blow up fast. What if you're wrong? And what if I'm right?" Lena answered, her tone cool and sharp. "I can't bring a child into a lie. I need to know. I have to see it myself." There was a beat of silence, and Lena could hear Aaron's hesitation on the line, the worry behind her sharpness. Lena wasn't just investigating infidelity, she was unraveling the very fabric of her marriage. And deep down she already knew what she'd find. Aaron exhaled. "Then promise me you won't confront him alone. Call me the second you're out of there, please." "I promise." Friday afternoon came. Lena hugged Carter at the door, her voice syrupy and soft. "I'll miss you," she said, the words sour in her mouth. "I'll miss you more," he replied with a smile, resting a hand on her belly. He lied. Carter gently stroked Lena's belly. "Take care of our little one," he whispered with faux tenderness. The hypocrisy nearly knocked the wind out of her. She drove the Defender out of the private garage beneath their high rise, heading north as if she were bound for Mendocino. She kept driving for over an hour until she reached a rest stop just outside Petaluma. There, she parked the SUV, stepped into the convenience store, and bought a coffee she wouldn't drink. As dusk began to settle, painting the sky in shades of orange and ash, she waited for the pre-arranged car service to arrive. Lena left the SUV behind as a decoy and rode silently back into the city. The car dropped her off 3 blocks from their building. The doorman, Jorge, a kind older man who always remembered her grocery deliveries, was out on his dinner break. The security guard at the front desk barely glanced up as she slipped past with an old service entrance key she hadn't used in years. Everything felt surreal, like she had slipped into the wrong version of her own life, a version where the walls of her sanctuary were hiding secrets too grotesque to name. With every step, she wasn't just getting closer to a bedroom, she was walking toward the truth. Sharp and irreversible. Her heart pounded like a war drum as she rode the service elevator upward, each passing floor squeezing the breath from her lungs. This was it, the moment she couldn't undo. At the top, Lena unlocked the penthouse door with a physical key, bypassing the keypad Carter typically used. Silence greeted her first. Not peaceful silence, heavy silence. A silence brimming with tension and the thick, sweet perfume that now felt like an assault, stronger this time, mingled with the spicy edge of a cologne that wasn't Carter's usual scent. It felt like walking into a crime scene, only the victim was still standing, still breathing. Barely. She moved like a shadow, noiseless on the plush hallway runner. A half-empty bottle of vintage champagne sat on the kitchen island. 2 flutes beside it, one bearing a crimson lipstick stain. Draped over a dining chair was a silk scarf in a color eerily like dried blood. Lena drifted toward the bedroom hallway, a ghost in her own home. The master bedroom door was cracked just enough for sound to leak through. Low murmurs. A soft, sultry laugh. Her blood ran cold. It was the same laugh she had heard outside the wine bar. Her hand trembled as she pushed the door open. There they were. Carter and the raven-haired woman, wrapped in each other, tangled in the sheets of the very bed Lena had slept in the night before. The bed where they had whispered dreams. The bed where their child had been conceived. They were too deep in each other's embrace to notice her. They didn't see the figure standing in the doorway. A ghost of loyalty, a witness to their betrayal. The image didn't just sting. It carved itself into her memory like a scar. Each second she stood there, a fresh cut. The sight was grotesque in its intimacy, a cruel mimicry of love in the most sacred place she knew. For a moment, Lena couldn't breathe. The sight hit her like a blade, searing, final, unforgettable. Her skin went pale. A noise escaped her lips, a soft, cracked whimper. Gasping, Carter's head snapped up. His eyes widened. Horror, disbelief, and then a raw, animal fear. Lena! The name slipped from his mouth in a broken whisper, a pathetic echo of the destruction he had just unleashed. In that moment, the fantasy of their perfect life didn't just fracture, it exploded into 1,000 jagged pieces. Time seemed to slow. Every detail sharpened. The raven-haired woman's striking silhouette against the pale linen sheets Lena had folded just days ago. The way Carter scrambled to yank the covers up in a laughable attempt at modesty. The woman's expression, irritated and smug, not the least bit ashamed. The room felt like it was tilting. A nauseating sense of vertigo hit Lena as her eyes darted across familiar details now tainted by betrayal. The sheets she had chosen, the pillows they had once picked out together during a lazy Sunday. Now, all of it reeked of someone else's touch. Lena felt untethered from her body. Her hands trembled. Her chest rose and fell like she couldn't get enough air. Inside her, a superstorm brewed. Pain, fury, betrayal, all colliding at once. Then came the shift. The tears dried up, her spine straightened. "Get out," she said. Her voice was low, cutting, steely. It didn't rise, didn't waver, it didn't need to. It sliced through the air like a blade. The woman, whom Lena would later learn was named Simone, rolled her eyes. "Excuse me," she said, sitting upright with a flick of her hair, making no move to cover herself. "Who the hell do you think you are?" "I'm his wife," Lena said, eyes locked on Carter. "And this is my home. You have 5 minutes to grab your things and get out before I call security and have you arrested for trespassing." The room went deathly quiet, like the seconds before a thunderclap. Carter's face drained of color, his mouth working to form words that never came. He looked caught, cornered, his composure unraveling with every breath Lena took. Carter finally found his voice. Desperate. Panicked. "Lena, please, just let me explain. It's not what it looks like." Lena laughed. A cold, bitter sound that rang through the room like a siren. "Not what it looks like," she spat. "Carter, are you blind or just that stupid? You are in our bed, with a naked woman who isn't me. It's exactly what it looks like." She turned her gaze to Simone. 5 minutes is now 4. Simone, finally catching the warning in Lena's tone, slid off the bed and began collecting her clothes, which lay like clues on the floor. As she dressed, a smirk curled across her lips. She didn't look embarrassed. She looked victorious. "Don't worry, Carter," she said sweetly, fastening the back of her dress. "You know where to find me when you're done with this." Her eyes flicked pointedly to Lena's round belly with undisguised contempt. Then, without another word, Simone strutted out, the scent of her cloying perfume clinging to the air. The moment the door clicked shut, Lena turned back to Carter. "How long?" she asked, voice flat. "It was a mistake," he stammered. "A stupid, meaningless—" "How long?" Each word landed like a punch. He flinched, then finally caved. 6 months, he muttered. 6 months. The timeline crashed into her like a wrecking ball. He had been with that woman while Lena and Carter were trying to conceive. He had been with her when Lena handed him the positive test, trembling with joy. He had been with her when they heard their baby's heartbeat for the first time. The betrayal wasn't just emotional anymore. It was spiritual. It was parasitic, rotting everything she thought they had. The very foundation of their life, their marriage, their future, their child was laced with rot. Lena felt it in her bones, like an infection seeping into marrow. How many moments had she cherished while he desecrated their vows behind her back? Was she the reason for the late nights? Lena demanded, her voice cutting through him like a blade. The investor meetings? The trips? Carter's silence was an answer. He nodded, eyes fixed on the floor. "I want you to pack a bag," Lena said. Her voice was cold, robotic. "I want you out of here tonight." "Lena, please," he pleaded, taking a hesitant step forward. "Think of the baby." "I am thinking of the baby," she shouted, her composure cracking wide open. "I am thinking that I will not raise my child in a house built on deceit. I will not stay married to a man who cheats on me, humiliates me, and brings his mistress into our bed." The words rang out like a bell, one that marked the death of something sacred. Her breath came short and sharp, and her hand clutched her belly as if shielding the only pure thing left. She backed away, her arm instinctively wrapping around her swollen stomach. "You'll leave, and we'll speak through our lawyers." The word stopped him cold. "Lawyers?" he repeated, stunned. "Lena, don't be ridiculous. We can fix this." "The time for fixing this ended the moment you decided your vows meant nothing," she said, her voice now barely above a whisper. Carter stood frozen for a second, then finally walked to the closet and began yanking clothes off hangers into a duffel. Lena's eyes drifted to the bedside table. An unfamiliar phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a new message from a contact labeled JP. "Phase 1 complete. Monroe is distracted. The board is getting nervous. Time to prep the takeover bid. Did you get the server passwords?" Lena's blood ran cold. This wasn't just infidelity. This was a setup. She stared at Carter, who was still hunched over his suitcase, oblivious. Then back at the phone, the initials JP. Something clicked, like a trap snapping shut. A memory came rushing back. Months ago at a tech fundraiser, Carter had mentioned his most dangerous corporate rival, Jonathan Pierce, ruthless, cold. A venture capitalist who'd been circling Monroe Innovations for years like a shark. JP. And Simone. Lena's eyes widened. She had seen her before, not in real life, but in an industry magazine. An article profiling Pierce's most trusted strategist. The woman in the bed wasn't just his mistress. She was the bait. Simone wasn't just some random woman. She was Simone Vance, a fast-rising executive at Pierce Equity, the crown jewel of Jonathan Pierce's empire. This wasn't just a tawdry affair. This was espionage. Simone hadn't seduced Carter Monroe for love or lust. She was a corporate asset, a calculated plant, a honey trap sent to dismantle Monroe Innovations from within. She was executing a hostile strategy, and Carter had walked right into it. Lena's insides twisted with a new emotion, a tangled storm of betrayal and duty. Carter had broken her heart in ways she hadn't even known were possible. But Monroe Innovations, that company was their child's future. It was part of their legacy, something they were supposed to build together. She couldn't let a snake like Simone ruin it all. Carter zipped up his duffel bag and turned to her, face crumpled in defeat. "I'm going to go to the club," he muttered. "We'll talk in the morning." Lena looked at him, really looked at him, at the man she once believed in. The man who shattered her trust and was now standing on the edge of losing everything. She made a split-second decision. Her personal heartbreak would have to wait. "No," she said, voice like iron. "You're not going anywhere. Unpack your bag." Carter blinked, confused. "What? Why?" "We have a much bigger problem than your affair." She picked up the burner phone from the nightstand and held it out. "I'm talking about this." He took it with a furrowed brow, scanned the screen, and paled. All color vanished from his face. The weight of what he'd done hit him with the force of an avalanche. His affair hadn't just wrecked his marriage. It might have sunk his company. And the only person who could help him now was the woman he had just betrayed. The air in the penthouse shifted. It was no longer the scene of a domestic disaster. It was a crisis command center. The betrayal of moments ago still burned, but it was now laced with something else. Urgency. Carter stood frozen, staring at the message like it might bite him. That text from JP had changed everything. His shameful indiscretion wasn't just personal. It was a threat to his entire empire. She works for Pierce? He whispered, dread creeping into his voice. She's his senior VP of acquisitions, Lena said coldly, already thinking 5 steps ahead. They've been calling her his golden girl for the past year. It's all over Forbes. You were so busy playing the role of a late-night genius, Lena snapped, that you didn't even recognize the woman sent to dismantle everything you built. The words hit like a slap. Carter slumped onto the edge of the bed, the same bed he had so recently desecrated, and buried his head in his hands. "Oh God," he muttered. "The server passwords, last week at the office. She said she was interested in our back-end security. I was showing off. I logged into the admin dashboard to impress her." "You idiot," Lena breathed, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "You arrogant, reckless idiot." "I know," he groaned, voice muffled by shame. "What have I done?" For a long, tense moment, Lena just stood there, watching him crumble. Every bone in her body urged her to walk away, to call her lawyer and let him burn in the fire he started. He deserved it. But then she thought of the child growing inside her, of their future, of the legacy Monroe Innovations was supposed to become for their family. This wasn't just his company. It was her future too. And now it was under attack. From Jonathan Pierce, a man whose business philosophy was annihilation. Lena took a deep breath and shoved the heartbreak into a sealed box in her mind. "Get up, Carter," she said firmly. "Sulking isn't going to fix this." He looked up at her, hope flickering in his eyes at her use of we. "We need to assess the damage." What exactly did she see? "She saw the admin dashboard," Carter said, straightening his back. From there, she could have triggered a data pull. Client lists, proprietary code, our Q3 forecasts. He swallowed hard. If she got the projections, Pierce has the ammo to force a sell-off. He's been trying to buy us out for over a year. The boards resisted, but if they see even a hint of instability and he waves those numbers around, they'll fold. He'll drive down the stock price and scoop us up for pennies. Lena paced. This was Simone's game. Seduce the CEO, extract the data, tank the company, and let her boss swoop in with a bargain basement offer. It's elegant in its brutality. "We have to fight back," she said, her voice sharp with urgency. "And we have to start now." "But how?" Carter asked, desperation cracking through. "He has the leverage." "No, he thinks he does," Lena countered, a flash of her old brilliance igniting behind her eyes. That same unshakable intensity Carter remembered from their early days. Before love, before marriage, before the empire. His plan relies on one thing: you folding. He's betting on chaos. He expects a distracted, lovesick fool wrapped in a scandal, a crumbling marriage, an unraveling executive. She locked eyes with him. "But if we don't fall apart, if we turn the narrative, he becomes the fool." Her words hung in the air, heavy, tactical, true. Pierce and Simone were waiting for Monroe Innovations to bleed. Lena had other plans. "By Monday morning," Lena said, still pacing, "when word gets out that our marriage is in shambles, they'll expect you to fall apart. They're counting on it. They expect panic, weakness, a power vacuum." "They're not wrong," Carter muttered, slumping into a nearby chair. "I am falling apart. But you won't show it," Lena countered, her voice like steel, "because there will be no messy divorce, no screaming matches in the press, no fuel for their fire." Carter looked up, confused. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we form an alliance," Lena replied. Her tone was cold, strategic. "A business partnership. We'll freeze all public talk about our personal issues. We will be united. We will be strong." She turned to face him fully. "We'll go to the Tech Innovators Gala on Sunday. We'll smile for the cameras. We'll hold hands. You'll kiss my cheek. We will look like the power couple the board invested in, and Jonathan Pierce will see that House Monroe hasn't fallen." "But we're not united," Carter said, voice cracking. He doesn't know that," Lena snapped. "Simone doesn't know that. She thinks she owns you. She thinks she's your weakness." A fire sparked behind her eyes. "We're going to make her our asset." A plan, daring, dangerous, was taking shape. "You're going to call her," Lena said. "You'll tell her I threw you out, that you're heartbroken, that she's the only one who understands you. And then, When she thinks she's won, you'll feed her exactly what we want Pierce to believe. Carter blinked. You want me to lie to her? To keep pretending? I want you to turn their own con back on them. The suggestion turned everything upside down. Carter was being asked to play both roles, devoted husband and devoted traitor, all while under the eye of the enemy he didn't see coming. I don't know if I can do that, he said, voice trembling. Lena walked over to him, locked her eyes with his. The pain in her gaze was unmistakable, but so was the resolve, the fire, the command. You will, she said, her voice leaving no room for resistance. You'll do it for your company, for our child, and because it's the only step you can take toward repairing even a fraction of what you destroyed. She leaned in closer. This isn't about forgiveness, Carter. This is about survival. Silence stretched between them. Carter looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw not just the woman he had shattered, but the force of nature still standing in front of him. A leader. A warrior. He gave a slow, deliberate nod. I'm with you, Carter said quietly. Good, Lena replied, turning her back to him. Now call your mistress. You've got a role to play. The war for Monroe Innovations had begun, and its war room was the very bedroom where the first bomb had been dropped. The next 36 hours passed in a haze of tension and carefully orchestrated deception. The penthouse, once a symbol of comfort and opulence, became a covert command post. Lena, driven by coffee, fury, and the unyielding will to protect her future, took charge like a seasoned general. Carter, humbled and hollow, followed her lead like a soldier in penance. Gone were the tears, gone was the pleading. In their place stood a woman transformed, hardened, strategic, relentless. Lena wasn't just surviving, she was planning the counterattack. His first call to Simone had to be perfect. Lena stood beside him, scripting every line on a yellow legal pad, whispering cues like a director on set. Simone, it's me, Carter said, his voice shaking with manufactured grief. She knows. Lena knows everything. She threw me out. I'm at the club. I don't know what to do. The call was on speaker. Simone's voice, sickly sweet, oozed through the line. Oh baby, I'm so sorry. But isn't this what we wanted? Now we can finally be together. No more secrets. Yes, of course, Carter replied, sticking to the script. It's just the timing. Lena's threatening to go public. She's talking lawyers, divorce, emotional distress. She's going to try to take half the company. That was the bait. Lena knew the idea of a legal battle, one that could freeze Carter's shares and destabilize Monroe Innovations, would be exactly what Jonathan Pierce was counting on. A fractured CEO meant easier conquest. Simone didn't disappoint. Don't worry about her, she cooed. Let her file her lawsuits. By the time anything goes through, there won't be much of a company left to fight over. JP's moving in, Monday's the drop. There it was. They had the timeline. What do you want me to do? Carter asked, playing the part of the disoriented, broken man. Just stay quiet, Simone instructed. Leave it to me and JP. The more distracted you are, the better. Call me tomorrow. I love you, she added. I love you too, Carter replied, the words tasting like acid. The silence that followed was suffocating. The weight of the performance, of every lie just uttered, pressed heavy on his chest. He wasn't just acting, he was finally seeing the full scale of the damage he'd helped create. As the call ended, he slumped back against the headboard, emotionally spent. Well done, Lena said, her voice flat, focused. She bought it. Completely. Now it was time for Phase 2. Phase 2 meant rallying their own allies. Lena insisted they loop in Marcus Thorne, Carter's oldest friend and Monroe's chief legal officer. But they wouldn't meet at headquarters. They needed secrecy. In the sterile quiet of their penthouse, Marcus Thorne, stoic, razor-sharp, listened in silence as Carter laid it all out, each damning detail guided by Lena's steady hand. The affair, the breach, the stolen data. Marcus's face remained neutral, but Lena saw it, the flicker of disillusionment in his eyes. The weight of betrayal wasn't just personal. It was professional. So let me get this straight, Marcus said, his voice crisp. Pierce plans to leak the Q3 numbers to scare the board, rattle the market, and launch a hostile takeover Monday morning. Exactly, Lena replied, stepping in before Carter could. But what he doesn't know, she continued, is that we're on to him, and we're going to flip his own playbook against him. Her plan was bold, dangerous in its elegance. They would let Pierce leak the Q3 earnings. The dip in stock? Expected. But Monday afternoon, after the bell closed, they would unveil something massive, something to make the Q3 numbers irrelevant. "Carter," Lena said, "you need to call an emergency board meeting for Monday morning. The leak will happen. Let the panic set in, but our real move comes after." "We need a counter-narrative," Marcus added, catching on fast. "Something with gravity. Something that tells investors we're 5 moves ahead." Carter finally leaned forward, the gears in his head turning again. "Project Helix." Lena arched a brow. "Our AI platform. It's been in stealth mode for a year. It's 6 months ahead of schedule. Beta is functional. Real-time language processing. Predictive automation. It'll triple our back-end efficiency. Nothing like it exists." "Is it ready?" Lena asked, laser-focused. "The beta is. We could do a demo live. Secure." "Perfect," Marcus said, his eyes gleaming now. "Let Pierce leak the storm. Then you launch the future. The stock won't just rebound, it'll skyrocket. His lowball bid will be a joke." Lena didn't smile. Not yet. Her mind ticked like a metronome, measuring risks, timing steps, calculating each move like a grandmaster eyeing a checkmate. The battle wasn't won, but for the first time she could see the outline of victory. All that remained was the final act, the Tech Innovators Gala. Sunday night, the biggest event of the year. And they knew Pierce and Simone would be watching, circling like predators. "This is it," Lena told Carter as she stood before the mirror, adjusting a stunning emerald green gown that flowed around her baby bump like a silk banner. "The most important performance of our lives." She looked radiant, commanding, not a victim, but a storm cloaked in elegance. Inside her, a storm brewed, not of anger now, but of resolve. She would walk into the lion's den wearing defiance like perfume. Carter, in a tailored tux, looked at her with the kind of reverence that only came when you realized you'd nearly lost the one person who could still save you. She was magnificent. He had almost traded her for a lie. As they stepped into the gala, camera flashes erupted like fireworks. They smiled, held hands. Lena's hand rested on her belly. Carter placed his over hers. They were the picture of unity, of power, of a future still intact. Across the ballroom she saw them. Jonathan Pierce, the corporate predator in a custom navy suit, and Simone, cool and smug in crimson. Lena didn't flinch. Let the game begin. Simone stood across the ballroom in a gown of fierce, blood-red satin, elegant, predatory. Her gaze locked on them, and for a moment, Lena saw it. Confusion. This was not the unraveling, humiliated couple she had expected. Throughout the evening, Lena and Carter played their roles flawlessly. They mingled with tech CEOs, laughed with investors, and spoke lovingly of their upcoming baby moon. Every movement was intentional, every smile weaponized. And then, near the champagne fountain, they crossed paths with Jonathan Pierce and Simone. The air crackled with tension. "Carter," Pierce greeted, his grin shark-like. "Looking well." "Feeling great, JP," Carter replied, hand resting firmly on Lena's lower back. "Big moves coming." Simone leaned in, her tone hushed and sharp. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "I thought we agreed." "We're keeping up appearances," Carter murmured back, hitting his lines precisely as Lena had coached. "It's for the board. Don't worry. It's all happening. Implosion's right around the corner." He gave her a subtle wink. Lena watched it with a clenched jaw, but smiled. Simone's suspicion briefly faded, but Lena knew the seed of doubt had been planted. Later, while Carter was sidetracked by another CEO, Pierce approached Lena by the balcony. She turned, drink in hand, spine straight. "You're a hell of an actress, Mrs. Monroe," he said, voice like polished steel. "I'm afraid I don't follow," she replied smoothly, sipping her sparkling water. "Oh, I think you do," he said, his eyes gleaming. "But let me offer you some advice." He leaned in slightly. "When a ship is going down, smart rats don't rearrange the deck chairs. They jump." Lena didn't blink. "Thank you for the metaphor, Mr. Pierce. But you're mistaken." She smiled, wide and controlled. "This isn't a ship," she said. "It's a battleship, and you've mistaken my husband's kindness for incompetence." She paused. "We protect what's ours." Then she turned and walked away, leaving Pierce watching her, his smugness visibly rattled. The message had been delivered, the gauntlet thrown. All that remained was the final move. Monday dawned under a grim, gray sky. No sun, no comfort. The atmosphere in the penthouse matched the weather. Thick, tense, silent. Lena and Carter didn't speak. They didn't need to. They moved like two soldiers preparing for war. There was only one mission left: survive. They sat in Carter's home office, where a massive screen displayed a grid of muted financial news channels. The room was silent, save for the gentle clink of a spoon against Lena's ceramic mug, and the ominous tick of a countdown clock marking the seconds to market open. 9:31 a.m. The opening bell rang. The attack began instantly. A red, breaking news banner slashed across every channel. Monroe Innovations, leaked Q3 reports signal staggering shortfall. On the ticker feed, Monroe's stock, MOV, turned blood red. It wasn't just a number anymore, it was a gaping wound. Carter and Lena watched in frozen silence as it plunged. Down 7%, down 10%, then 15%. Carter's breathing grew shallow. A lifetime of sweat, sacrifice, and innovation imploding in real time. The phones began to vibrate, both his and Lena's. A storm of incoming calls, texts, and urgent emails lit up their devices like fireworks. Board members, investors, analysts. Panic had arrived. "It's happening," Carter whispered, his face ashen. He looked to Lena, grasping for the steel resolve she had carried like armor all weekend. She didn't look at him. Her eyes never left the screen. "Let it burn," she said. Her voice was terrifyingly calm. "He's running our exact play, line for line." "Marcus is managing the board," she continued. "They've been told to hold the line. No one moves until the noon emergency session. All they have to do is wait." By 10:15 a.m., the stock had hemorrhaged 22%. Carter's phone lit up with a name that sent bile rising in his throat. Lena gave a single nod. "Showtime," he answered. "Put it on speaker." Simone's voice rang out, buzzing with triumph. "It's a bloodbath, baby. We're watching it unfold from JP's office. The board must be losing their minds. He's writing the official offer now. They'll cave. You're almost free." "We've won." Carter took a breath, just shaky enough to be believable. "Incredible," he murmured, voice thick with faux awe. "You were right. I can't believe it." "I told you," she said with a purr. "Just sit tight. Let the old regime die. Our new life's about to start." He kept her talking, stroking her ego, playing the lovesick fool, while Lena listened beside him, ice in her veins. At precisely 12 noon, Carter stood in a charcoal black suit that fit him like armor. His face was composed. His steps were sharp. He entered the 75th floor boardroom of Monroe Innovations. Back in the penthouse, Lena remained seated. Their command post, their war room. Her fingers hovered above her tablet. Ready. Lena's moment would come later, when the cameras were rolling. For now, Carter stood alone. Inside the gleaming glass boardroom, the atmosphere was suffocating. The faces around the massive mahogany table were grim. Not just business grim, personal grim. There was betrayal here. Fury, and it was all aimed at him. At the head of the table sat Eleanor Vance, the board's matriarch. A woman in her 70s with the steel spine of a general and the memory of a ledger. She had backed Carter's father in the company's infancy. Now her gaze could cut glass. "Carter," she said, her voice cold and surgical. "What in God's name is happening? Those numbers are a 5-alarm fire, and this leak is a public execution. Start talking." Carter took a breath, not to calm himself, but to summon the voice Lena had coached into him. Calm, authoritative, controlled. "Madam Chairwoman, esteemed members of the board," he began. "Yes, our Q3 performance was below our internal projections, ambitious ones, I might add." He looked around the room, held the silence for one breath longer than comfortable. "It's also true," he continued, "that these numbers were not disclosed voluntarily. They were stolen, leaked with malicious intent." A ripple went through the boardroom. Shock, confusion, rising unease. "This wasn't an accident," Carter said, steel now threading through his tone. "This was a calculated act of corporate espionage, engineered by Pierce Equity to devalue Monroe Innovations and force a hostile takeover." "Espionage?" a board member interjected, incredulous. "That's a serious accusation, Carter. Do you have any proof?" "I have more than proof," he said. "I have a confession." The lie rolled off his tongue with such authority he almost believed it himself. The operative, a senior executive at Pierce, believed she had compromised me, that she was feeding data from a distracted, desperate CEO. He paused, eyes scanning the room. "But for the last several weeks, my wife and I, in coordination with Marcus Thorne, have been reversing the play. We've been feeding them curated data, anticipating this attack, preparing our counterstrike." Silence, then a slow, collective shift in the room. The fear, gone, replaced by intrigue, shock, a murmur of rising energy. They weren't on a sinking ship, they were part of a classified counterintelligence op. This leak, Carter said, voice now ringing with purpose, was always part of our calculus. The Q3 projections you've seen represent where we were, not where we're going. They reflect a legacy system, a company focused on yesterday's tools. He stepped forward, and the screen behind him flickered to life. For the past 18 months, our top engineers, our Skunk Works division, have been working in stealth mode on something that will reshape this industry. We kept it entirely off the books, Carter said, his voice calm, steady, firewalled from every main system, air-gapped, just in case. He turned to the board. We call it Project Helix. He pressed a button on the sleek console in front of him. The screen behind him, previously displaying the hemorrhaging MNOV stock, flickered, then bloomed into color. For the next 30 minutes, Carter delivered the performance of his career. But this wasn't just a presentation, it was a revelation. He didn't pitch a product, he unveiled a new future. Live, he demonstrated the AI integration platform, instant logistics optimization, real-time market prediction, and automation protocols that would triple processing efficiency across entire industries. The board watched, mesmerized. Carter didn't just speak, he sold. And for the first time in months, maybe years, it was a dream he believed in. When he finished, the silence was absolute. The board didn't see losses anymore. They saw a $1 trillion valuation shimmering on the horizon. Eleanor Vance, pale and stunned, was the first to break it. "My God, Carter," she whispered. "This changes everything." Right on cue, the boardroom doors opened. Marcus Thorne stepped in, grim but electrified. He walked straight to Carter and handed him a tablet. "It's here," Marcus announced, his voice firm and clear. Carter read the screen. His expression darkened, then turned into a slow, predatory smile. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, lifting his head, "we have just received an unsolicited formal takeover offer from Pierce Equity." He read the number aloud. The room fell into stillness. The offer was laughably low, an insult in the face of the technology they had just seen. One board member snorted, another chuckled. Within seconds, the entire boardroom erupted into cathartic, incredulous laughter. Just hours ago, this number had been a death knell. Now it was a punchline. "Our response," Carter said, his voice booming with new power, "is clear. The board unanimously rejects the offer." He paused, then delivered the kill shot. Additionally, Monroe Innovations will be filing a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against Pierce Equity and its senior vice president, Ms. Simone Vance, for corporate espionage, IP theft, and felony market manipulation. He looked to Marcus. "All filings are prepared. Our press release, including the official launch of Project Helix, goes live at exactly 4:01 p.m. after close." This wasn't defense. It was retaliation. It was war. Across town, in the shimmering tower of Pierce Equity, champagne corks had already popped. But the toast was premature. The reckoning was only just beginning. Simone and Jonathan Pierce stood before a sleek wall of monitors inside the Pierce Equity war room, champagne glasses in hand, watching Monroe Innovations bleed. "He never saw it coming," Simone said, tapping her glass against his. "Poor, sentimental Carter, so easy to manipulate." Jonathan smirked. "Too easy." Then his phone buzzed. A news alert. He glanced at the screen. His smile stiffened. "They rejected the offer," Simone scoffed. "Desperation, nothing more." But then another buzz. And another. Monroe Innovations to sue Pierce Equity for corporate espionage. Carter Monroe unveils Project Helix, a groundbreaking AI platform. Simone's chest tightened. The filtered confidence drained from her face like water down a crack. She felt the air grow thick, each word on the feed a dagger twisting in her gut. "What the hell is this?" she asked, her voice suddenly strained. She tapped furiously, pulling up a live feed. There he was, Carter, at a press podium, delivering a confident, charismatic statement. Not broken, triumphant. Then, her blood chilled. Lena Monroe stepped onto the stage beside him, radiant in an emerald gown. Her hand rested gently on Carter's arm. They shared a look, not of survival, but of strength, of love. The camera flashes exploded like fireworks. The Monroes weren't reeling, they were rising. A fortress in heels and a three-piece suit. Simone stared. This wasn't the soft, artistic wife she had dismissed. Lena hadn't been the collateral damage. She had been the architect. Simone's fingers shook. The room seemed to tilt. All the rehearsed composure, to seduce, to deceive, crumbled in that heartbeat. She was no longer in control of this stage. Simone turned to Jonathan, whose face was now dark with rage. His smug confidence was gone, replaced by something raw and seething. "They played us," he snarled, hurling his champagne glass against the wall. It shattered like his plans. "That bastard and his perfect wife, they played us." Simone's world collapsed in a heartbeat. She realized then that her role, the carefully constructed mask of dominance, had been a lie. She had been the pawn, blind to the real battlefield and the real enemy. The betrayal cut deeper than anything. She hadn't been the seductress or the mastermind. She'd been the pawn, sacrificed in a war she never even knew she was fighting. That night, the Monroe penthouse was calm once more. The screens no longer showed a crisis, but a legend in the making. News anchors hailed Carter Monroe's genius fight, the failed takeover, the historic lawsuit, the miraculous unveiling of Project Helix. Monroe Innovations' after-hours stock wasn't just rebounding, it was exploding, an all-time high. They hadn't survived, they had won, utterly. Carter poured 2 glasses of sparkling cider, hands still trembling with adrenaline. He turned to Lena. He handed 1 glass to Lena. She stood by the towering window, gazing out over the city, the empire they had just salvaged from the edge of destruction. "Thank you, Lena," Carter said, his voice tight with emotion, a blend of awe, remorse, and the brittle hope of reconciliation. "You saved the company. You saved me from myself. You saved everything." Lena didn't respond right away. She stared at the lights, the same lights that had mocked her just nights ago as she stood in the same spot, heart shattered. "I did what I had to do," she said, her tone stripped of warmth, "to protect our child's future." Her voice didn't shake, not with anger, not with grief, only the steel of finality. She hadn't saved him, she had salvaged what was hers. No pride, no triumph, only clarity. The fragile truce that had united them through the storm had served its purpose. It had held, and now it dissolved. Carter took a step forward, hesitant. "Lena, after everything we just did, what we accomplished, can't that mean something?" She turned slowly to face him. Her eyes were resolute, calm. They held no trace of the strategist who had just helped him defeat their enemies, only the quiet devastation of a woman who had once trusted him completely. "There is no us, Carter," she said gently. "The arrangement is over. The performance is done. We saved Monroe Innovations." She paused. "Now we handle the divorce." The word hit him harder than any market collapse. "No," he breathed, devastated. "Please don't say that. Look at what we can do together. We're extraordinary." "We are extraordinary in a crisis," she replied softly, "as partners in business. But a marriage, a real marriage, that's not a boardroom deal, Carter. It's built on the quiet hours, on loyalty when no one is watching, on choosing someone over and over again, and you didn't." She looked him dead in the eye. "You didn't just break my trust. You shattered it. You brought a snake into our home, into our bed, into the future we were building for our child." She set her untouched glass down on the table beside her. Final, decisive. "I want you to leave, Carter. For real this time." She looked out the window once more. "My lawyer will reach out to Marcus in the morning. We'll keep things civil, for the baby. But this is over." Carter stood in silence. The war had been won. But now, in the stillness of their penthouse, he finally saw the wreckage he had caused. The cost of betrayal wasn't just counted in dollars. It was counted in what he would never get back. Carter had saved his empire. But in doing so, he had irrevocably destroyed his home. As he packed his bag for the second and final time, the weight of his mistakes bore down with brutal clarity. He had underestimated Jonathan Pierce. He had been a fool for Simone. But the gravest, most ruinous miscalculation of all, he had underestimated Lena. And that was a mistake he would spend the rest of his life and a fortune regretting. Lena Monroe was no victim. She was a queen. She had defended her kingdom, protected her heir, and claimed her future without flinching. She didn't just save a corporation, she reclaimed her power. And in doing so, she showed that even the most shattered heart can become a weapon and a shield. Her story is a raw, unforgettable testament. Sometimes the most devastating betrayals forge the fiercest warriors. So the story is over, dear friends, and if you're still here at this hour, something in Lena's journey must have stirred something inside you. Let's sit in that feeling for a moment, because this wasn't just a story about betrayal or corporate warfare. This was about truth, about seeing yourself in the rubble and choosing not just to rebuild, but to rise higher, stronger, wiser. Lena Monroe didn't just save a company, she saved herself. She reclaimed her voice in a world that tried to mute it with lies. Her story reminds us that dignity doesn't always come quietly. Sometimes it walks into a boardroom in heels and shuts down the storm with a single look. And if you're out there right now, standing in the middle of your own heartbreak, your own battle, know this: you are not powerless. You are not alone. As author Brené Brown said, owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing that we'll ever do. Let Lena's courage remind you, survival is not the end. Power comes in what you do next, in how you choose to heal, to protect, to lead. If this story moved you, resonated with you, even a little, do me a favor: like, share, and subscribe. Because someone else out there might need this reminder too. Someone else might be quietly watching, waiting for proof that their strength isn't gone. It's just waiting to be called upon. Let's keep telling stories that hold up a mirror. Let's keep finding pieces of ourselves in others. And let's never forget, even the most shattered heart can become a shield. Until next time, take care of your heart. You never know when it'll be the source of your greatest power.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.